Nasser Ahmed al-Raisi, accused of torture and horrific human rights abuses, is expected to be named Interpol President in December. The presidency of the current president of Interpol, Kim Jong-un, a South Korean police officer, will end in 2022. Interpol is the international criminal police organization including 194 member countries. The main goal of Interpol is to facilitate and coordinate a secure network between polices from different countries to act against international criminality. During the next General Assembly, which will take place between November 23 to 25, 2021, in Istanbul, Turkey, members of the Commission for the Control of Interpol's Files, CCF, will be elected as well as the next president. This executive committee will take office on March 11, 2022. Major General Nasser Ahmed al-Raisi, who is accused of serious human rights abuses, is expected to be named the next head of the organization. According to British postgraduate Ali Hamed, he was fed a cocktail of drugs during his imprisonment in Dubai on spying charges and was beaten up and electrocuted. He maintains that al-Raisi should not be the next head of Interpol and told reporters, "What I suffered in the UAE was very traumatizing and it will scar me for life." Another victim, Matthew Hedges, a Durham University PhD student who was tortured for almost 6 months by being placed in solitary confinement. He was arrested at Dubai Airport in May 2018 on suspicion of spying for UK intelligence. Among the claims Hedges makes is that his calls were monitored, that a false confession was forced upon him, and that a combination of strong drugs was given to him to combat his panic attacks. After a brief hearing, he was sentenced to life in prison, despite British authorities publicly denying that he was an agent. Later that year, he received a pardon after international pressure. The Gulf Center for Human Rights filed a complaint with the Judicial Court in Paris, accusing the Emirati Major General Ahmed Nasser al-Raisi of perpetrating brutal torture against the opposition Ahmed Mansour in Emirati prisons. Mansour's arrest in March 2017 sparked protests from major international human rights organizations, including Amnesty International, with the opposition carried out 2 hunger strikes since his imprisonment. Ahmed Mansour has been held since March 20, 2017, in solitary confinement in Al-Sadr prison for a period exceeding the 15-day period set by international standards, in a cell measuring 4 square meters, without a mattress, no protection from the cold, no access to a doctor, hygiene, water and sanitation. According to complaint, the organization stresses that the role of Major General Ahmed Nasser al-Raisi, the Inspector General of the UAE Ministry of Interior and responsible for monitoring the security forces since 2015, is evidenced in the acts of torture that Ahmed Mansour was subjected to. For all those evidences and even more, there is growing concerns and controversies over UAE Major General Dr. Ahmed Nasser al-Raisi, who is expected to be the next president. This nomination is highly political as the UAE became the second contributor with a $50 million donation allowed to Interpol Foundation in 2016. On October 28, 2020, MENA Rights Group and 18 other organizations delivered a joint letter to the Secretary General of Interpol, Jurgen Stark, expressing concern over the potential appointment of UAE Ahmed Nasser al-Raisi to the presidency of Interpol. Mr. al-Raisi is part of a security apparatus that continues to systematically target peaceful critics, rendering civic space virtually non-existent in the country. Hubert Julien Laferriere, French representative, exposed this candidate as the shameful candidacy. He has mobilized 34 other representatives to write a common letter to Emmanuel Macron. The French president did not bring any official answer yet. There are very convincing and extremely documented allegations against the general, said lately on France Info, William Burden, lawyer of Ahmed Mansour, Emirati activist, and of the Gulf Center for Human Rights. After the scandal over the disappearance of the Chinese Interpol last president, Meng Hanwei, arrested in China for corruption charges in 2018, allowing the UAE to manipulate Interpol by avoiding being asked any questions about their crimes committed with total impunity, will definitely ruin its already fragile credit. Nasser Ahmed al-Raisi, accused of torture and horrific human rights abuses.